We're in the All-Star break, but it's also the MLB draft break, or at least it's the days that just ended past the draft, which happened a couple of days ago. This is our draft review show. We're going to talk about Conrad, the new first-round pick. We're going to talk about my belief that the Cubs have telegraphed that they went out and drafted 3 left-handed hitting outfielders in lieu of trading Owen Caissie and not signing Kyle Tucker. At least it's an insurance policy on that. Plus a switch hitter in there as well that plays outfield. So they took all these outfielders at the top of the draft, and I think there's a reason why. But we're going to go through the draft. Got a special guest joining us. Thank you guys for being here. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Welcome to the Cubs baseball channel. Let's get the show started, everybody, and thank you for hanging. What do you say, everybody? With Connor Nelson, I'm Mick Gillespie, and he's going to help us break down the draft today. Welcome to the show. We're brought to you by D Community. That is our place to hang out. Use that QR code at the bottom as we build our Web3 home, and we appreciate all of you guys for being here as we talk about this year's draft. So we're going to get right to it. I'm telling you right now, Connor, my initial thought was get ready for Owen Caissie to be traded, and the Cubs might not sign Kyle Tucker, and they went out Ethan Conrad, their first-round pick, left-handed hitting outfielder. Guy's been injured since March, right? Cade Kepley, you wonder if at 5'8", 180, how that's going to translate to the pro game, but another left-handed hitting outfielder. A couple of pitchers, then Cade Snell from my alma mater, Alabama. I've seen him play before, 6'1", 220. These guys got some pop. Obviously with all these guys, you want to see him do well. But guess what? He's another left-handed hitting outfielder. And then, they took a switch hitting outfielder, Josiah Hartshorn, and that was, with their 6 picks. So the first 6 picks, 4 picks, four, including their first and second round picks, are left-handed hitting outfielders. It to me feels like an insurance policy because they're about to trade Owen Caissie, who should be in the major leagues right now, who should have been in the major leagues probably to start the season. You look around the league and you see guys like Cam Smith. We had him last year, first-round pick, been in the big leagues all year. What Pete Crow Armstrong's doing, what other organizations would do with a guy that's hit with this much power and authority, been such a threat, but he's one of the top prospects. He was great at the futures game, and it feels like they're going to trade him. And then, obviously they're not sure if they're going to get Kyle Tucker to return. So they're taking a risk. I've been very clear that if they don't have Tucker and they trade Owen Caissie, who is your insurance policy, I'd fire everybody and start over because I just don't think that they have the ability to long-term plan, and you have to do that as a front office. With that said, I see where they're going right now. They must have heard me because this to me feels like, hey, we're trying to save our ass with this draft.
Yeah, they got the ball rolling with the outfielders. I mean, the first outfielder taken in the draft and so dominantly prioritizing shortstops and pitchers. And I don't know, it's just today's game. Everybody wants these athletes, and we got a few of them for sure. But the big question mark lies in taking that first-round pick that's been injured for so long. I mean, Conrad's shown great signs at Wake Forest in his previous collegiate seasons. But with all of the outfielders, I think you're right, Mick. It's gearing up for doling out a lot of these guys like Owen Caissie here at this deadline to try and make a World Series push.
Well, let's talk about Ethan Conrad first. You mentioned 17th overall pick. A lot of the draft experts had him in the top 20, so it's not like they went and got, even Kyle Schwarber, when they drafted him, was kind of, they thought he'd be like a second-round pick, but Cub scouts were so good back then and adamant that the guy could hit, and he certainly still is doing that, right? But he's a 6'3", 220-pound left-handed outfielder. He played at Marist for the most part. He was with the Demon Deacons, but was injured with a shoulder injury. You wonder how he's going to bounce back from that. He hit 385 though in the Cape Cod League with a 433 on base percentage, and I think that's why scouts, not just Cub scouts, but scouts around baseball really liked him. I saw where the Cubs scouting director basically said, hey, he could be a 5-tool guy. And he's an outfielder that bats left-handed, that if you don't get your deal done with Kyle Tucker, and it really appears after this draft they're going to trade Owen Caissie, that he's a guy they feel like could make an impact. Now, the last 2 years they've drafted position players. Both of those guys are in the big leagues right now. Matt Shaw's with the Cubs, Cam Smith with the the Astros. This guy's hurt, so we're probably not going to see him this year. But I wonder if he'll have that same kind of upward trajectory next year.
Yeah, I mean, I like the swing and where it's at right now. Obviously, we're going to have to see how it's coming off of that shoulder surgery that's going to be so impactful for a left-handed bat, his throwing arm. So that's that power part of the swing. But I mean, the swing by itself, just watching the film, it kind of reminds me of that Jim Edmonds kind of hack. He's very relaxed, stands up tall, and is able to drive the ball. I think he profiles a little bit more like kind of these outfielders that we're seeing get converted from the infield, whether it's a Jackson Merrill or a Jaron Duran, because he's got a little bit of that speed threat as well, will steal some bases. And I think if that shoulder is able to heal up, we should see the power come back. And I think he'll be exciting to watch with what he was able to show transferring to Wake Forest in the ACC and playing to the level that he was seeing.
The number 2 pick was the 56th pick overall by the Cubs. Kane Kepley out of the University of North Carolina, very good baseball team and program. 5'8", 170 pounds. It kind of reminded me of Matt Shaw, to be honest with you, kind of an undersized guy that they feel like can play bigger than that, right? They love his ability to play the field defensively, a Gold Glove center fielder type of guy. He steals a lot of bases, which I think is part of this this new age of baseball where you're only allowed to throw to first twice. But he only hit 3 home runs last year in the conference, right? He did have 13 doubles and 7 triples, and he hit 291 there. I just wonder, is this a guy that's like a table setter type guy? 45 steals and 48 attempts, kind of a speedy center fielder. And can he get on base enough? Some of those small guys get overpowered. Can he get on base enough to make an to make an impact? And then how long is it going to take him to develop to get there? And then guess what? You got a center fielder right now in PCA, but it doesn't mean you can't have 2.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best, need a table setter kind of guy. I think this is the guy. 27 hit by pitches last season at UNC. That's the second most by a Tar Heel this century. And then if you go back to year 1 at Liberty, kind of shows you how he was as a freshman. I think this is a big sign. He had 39 walks to 22 strikeouts in 50 games as a freshman playing at Liberty. So this is a guy, he's a scrappy little player, 5'8", 180, but a solid frame, still has that ability to drive the ball into the gap. I like this 45 stolen bases, kind of unlocked that stolen base threat. Obviously, he had the raw speed, but UNC really must have helped him on the base pass in terms of how it is to be a base stealer. And it looks like that really worked in his final year in the ACC. And I think this is, reminds me of kind of like a Dalton Varsho, Brendan Donovan kind of player, but hopefully he can take that next step. And with these, guys who you may describe as undersized, it'll be how he adjusts to the, really professional pitching.
The 3rd pick was Dominic Reed. He's a pitcher from Abilene Christian, but remember now, he spent his first 2 years of college at Oklahoma State. He just couldn't get on the field there. And this was a guy that no one really saw coming as a 3rd-round pick, right? He wasn't on, many of the mock drafts and the big boards and all that stuff, right? He wasn't a top 135 prospect, but Cubs really liked his changeup, which I think is the best pitch. Honestly, I think the changeup's the best pitch. I think it's the most underrated, but I think it's the most important pitch. If someone has I used to talk about Randy Wells, Jake Arrieta type of changeup. They're going to get a lot of outs with that. And he's got one of those. He's got impressive control and picked up some velo on his fastball, towards the middle end of the season. Cubs needed, obviously, pitching. Everyone needs pitching. So they went with Reed, who is 6'3", 200 pounds with their 3rd-round pick. He was pick 90.
Yeah, I mean, he looks good on paper. Just 88 innings pitched there in the WAC. 112 strikeouts to just 27 walks. And you said it best, the changeup being the best pitch, that's just an outlier for right-handed pitching. And if he's able to throw that against righties and lefties, that's exactly what you want out of a right-hander, with the ability to get the ground ball and change speeds to both sides with that pitch. A lot of these major league hitters always like to say when a pitcher has a good changeup, it's really tough to adjust to everything because you never know when it's going to have that slight difference and drop right off the table.
That was the end of the first round, the first day, and just kind of the overall view for me was I was surprised with the pick of Conrad. Not that he's a left-handed hitting outfielder, but just that he was injured, and you just don't know. Shoulder injuries can be delicate. I mean, like sometimes it ends careers. I know technology and medicine have gotten a lot better, but what's he going to look like when he comes back? You're investing your first round pick in a guy that hasn't played since March. He only played in, major college baseball. And I'm sorry, Marist isn't major college baseball. Now Wake Forest is. I mean, they're a contender for the World Series every year, but he only did it for 2 months, so what's it going to look like when he comes back? That's a question. Obviously the Cubs scouts liked him a lot. It just feels like, it feels like a roll of the dice for me, right? Just because of the injury thing. But at the same time, a lot of these guys come back and it's no big deal at all. And then when you go down the line, a lot of players have injuries these days. I mean, like, especially pitching. I mean, you can't find anybody that doesn't have Tommy John surgery. And then the other two guys, kind of a surprise with the third pick. Second pick went with like a speedy setting the table outfielder. Nothing that really blew you away. I think last year when the Cubs took Cam Smith, we were all like, okay, yeah, we'd seen him in the College World Series. He was kind of a star on a team that went to the World Series and then had that epic battle against Tennessee. And, and Tennessee ended up winning. And I think if Florida State had won, they could have won the World Series. I mean, it turned out to be the best game of the whole playoff, right, last year. And then this year, a guy that really didn't play that much, but but has a lot of upside. And I'm sure if you get taken in the first round, that's kind of the deal. Did anything stick out to you?
Just that it was so outfield heavy. We're seeing all these athletes get taken, these shortstop type of players. And we'll get into the day two where I think they did go with a little bit more of that athlete kind of guy. But you said it best at the beginning. What sticks out is that it feels like we're replenishing outfielders because we know we're not going to have a lot of them left after this trade deadline and this offseason with what will happen with Kyle Tucker. And then what also stuck out was that there was just one pitcher picked on the first day. Yeah. I was kind of thinking it was going to be more pitcher focused because, I mean, you look at the top 30 prospects, there aren't a lot of guys that are going to be major league ready soon. Horton just left that list. They must feel pretty confident with the Imanaga, Steele, and Horton mix right now with the guys they still have control over that are projectable at least past next couple of seasons. But I mean, yeah, that the outfielders show the stronger need with Caissie leaving possibly soon.
Well, the philosophy's been with the Cubs, we'll go out and buy pitching. We'll let somebody else develop it because it is so hard to keep those guys healthy. But look, Cade Horton was a first-round pick, and he's like the first legitimate, I think, top-of-the-line starter. And it hasn't happened yet, but I think it will happen. If he stays healthy, he's got the ability to be that way that the Cubs have developed in a long time. And I put him there with Pryor and Wood. Now, you haven't seen that quite yet at the big league level, but he's been very good for a kid that's coming in, breaking in to the major leagues. He's not Paul Skeens, but you know what? He's got the potential to be there for a long time and be successful. And he was a first-round pick. So moving to pick 4, Caleb Wing is who the Cubs took. He is a right-handed pitcher. He was a high school senior at Scotts Valley High School in California, two-way player. And he pitched in 10 games, had a 1.23 ERA. His senior year, great stuff. Obviously hit .307 with 4 home runs and 22 batted in, and then was going to go to Loyola Marymount, but was drafted by the Cubs. And then the 5th pick was Cade Snell. Saw him play this year. Alabama senior. Snell was a two-way player in 2024. Then he focused on just playing left field in 25. This past spring, he hit .363, 10 home runs, 49 knocked in. 49 runs, 52 runs knocked in. He is a disciplined hitter. And he's someone that can obviously, hit some home runs, makes contact, comes from a big time program at Alabama, or at least a big time conference in the SEC. But another one of those outfielders. Now, they're all not right fielders, but they're all left-handed batters. And then finally, we'll kind of stop here and talk about this outfield group. Josiah Hartshorn from, and I hope I'm saying that right, which is a switch hitting outfielder from Orange Lutheran High School in California. He's a contact guy, hit 364 last year, has some raw power, trying to figure out like how that's going to translate. I think he hit 6 home runs. He was committed to Texas A&M. And, another guy that you look at and you're like, okay, at 6'2", 220, he's a big kid. And it just feels like this abundance of outfielders tells us, look, what if they traded Owen Caissie and Kevin Alcantara and didn't sign Kyle Tucker? And then remember that Seiya Suzuki's contract's going to be up after next year. And same thing with Ian Haps. I mean, they may be totally, and I don't think this will happen, but I mean, they could potentially have Pete Crow Armstrong out there by himself.
Yeah, I see a lot of the comments saying just trade Ian Happ instead of doing all this with Owen Caissie and whatnot, especially in these short comments, man. They all want Ian Happ out of here. Think it'd be the easier move. And with all these outfielders, it just seems like, they're going to have to be ready to move on from a lot of these guys. But the one guy on day 2 that really caught my eye was Caleb Wing. You mentioned he was originally committed to LMU as a two-way guy. And I've had the pleasure of knowing a handful of players who've gone and played at LMU. It's a really fun place to play. Maybe not the most high-profile D1 baseball school that you could go show yourself off at. So I think the Cubs taking him on day 2 probably showed him that, maybe I do have what it takes to go ahead and pick one. I think they want him really just as a pitcher, which could be interesting. He's an athletic guy, standing, just 6'2", 180. So gotta get some meat on those bones, but up to 95 on the fastball. And as a pure athlete, it seems like that's the mold right now. So this could be a guy that, really headlines the future of what could be the Cubs trying to develop some pitching.
Their 7th round pick was Pierce Capola, who struggled, his first couple years. And then this past year just kind of put it all together. 2.53 ERA at the University of Florida as a redshirt junior. He was very good with the walk to strikeout ratio. He's another guy that's dealt with some injuries over his career, but a left-handed pitcher at 6'8", 245. I mean, these are the guys you just say, hey, man, like, just figure out a way to get me 3 outs in an inning, and we'll get you to the big leagues. Pay you a lot to do that.
That's right. And if you go a little bit further down the line, they picking 2 big guys back to back. Jake Knapp, they go into the Tar Heel well twice in this draft with Kepley and Knapp now. And Knapp's another one of those bigger guys, and he was selected as the ACC Pitcher of the Year, the 5th Carolina player to claim that honor in the last handful of years. But as a grad student in 2025, 6'5", 270, this could be another guy where you're maybe transitioning roles between the bullpen and as a starting pitcher, but 2 big guys with 2 big fastballs could be fun to watch these guys barreling behind each other in the minor leagues.
Colton Book was their 9th round pick out of St. Joseph's, redshirt junior. He is a 6'4" lefty. You talk about another left-hander in there. You kind of go down the list, and there's Connor Spence from Ole Miss. I like those big program guys, right? Because the SEC, the ACC, in particular, maybe even out in the Pac-12 or whatever it's called now, those programs have gotten a lot closer to, high A, double A baseball with the amount of great players that have decided not to go to the pro ranks as high schoolers and stick around. And Connor Spence is someone that was at Southeastern Louisiana in 23, and then Ole Miss, and then, kind of tried to figure it out. And then this last year, he figured it out, right? He's a bullpen guy. that pitched for, like I said, the Rebels, had a 182 ERA in his 24 innings. That's impressive. And then they went right back to the Magnolia State with their 13th round pick and took arch rival Mississippi State senior and a right-hander and Nate Williams. He is a guy that was from Mississippi College, which is there in Jackson, had a little bit of D1 experience. And then, obviously went to the Bulldogs, and it was a tough season for State, but he had a 4.23 ERA in his 27 2/3 innings, has great stuff, misses a lot of bats, struck out 51 batters in 27 innings. And it's one of those deals where you're like, you know what? I like the fact that this guy is a swing and miss pitcher. I mean, maybe we can kind of, teach him how to do this a little bit better. He becomes a professional, spends all his time doing it. And he's able to duplicate that instead of the failures that they have. And I mean, that's kind of what pro ball is all about.
Yeah, just shout out all the Connors. 2 Connors drafted. It was a good day for the Connors. So I had to mention it. Connor Knox down there out of George Mason too. The Cubs are loving some Connors. We had a trivia question at one point on one of the Smokies pregame shows. We tried to get people to think that the Cubs mascot was Connor. Don't know why that popped into my head now, but hey, maybe it was just manifesting all this good Connor energy coming to Chicago.
Well, we'll stop with 18th round Connor Knox from George Mason. And as you mentioned, a Connor, 3 seasons at George Mason, a collegiate career 6.11 ERA, but had a 3.29 earned run average last year, 53 innings in his career, 39 walks, 56 strikeouts. But you draft him in the 18th round because you're like, hey, I like what this guy can do. I like some of his stuff. I also like this. Freddie Rodriguez went to one of my schools, University of Hawaii. I was out there for a semester. Great baseball players out there. And he was in the Big West Conference for 3 years, pitching for the Rainbows, the Rainbow Warriors, whatever they're called these days, the Warriors. But the last 2 years, a 5.08 ERA, and then kind of really sliced that down a little bit. They like obviously what he's able to do. Had a 102 earned run average pitching for Hawaii this past season. So he gets drafted, and that kind of rounds out the draft. There's some other guys in there. All in all, it's hard to really evaluate how good a draft is in baseball, just because it's not the NBA and it's not college football going into the NFL. There's just so many programs. You don't see these guys a lot. And then it's hard to figure out how they're going to transfer from a collegiate ball to pro ball or prep ball to pro ball. But the scouts try to do a lot of that work at in the college wood bat leagues, the Cape and stuff like that, where they're like, hey, you know what? The guy comes here, can hit with a wood bat. I just think that it always starts with your first round pick. That's where your money's being spent, first, second, third round. And to me, it's going to really depend on Conrad's ability to bounce back from that shoulder and get in there and be somebody that turns some heads, because they've done a really good job over the last 2 years leading into this. I mean, when you got 2 of those guys in the major leagues, you've done your job. So is this going to be the third guy?
Yeah, overall, there's an article out on Bleacher Report. It's giving the Chicago Cubs a B draft grade right now. It's not a lot of teams with higher than a B or a B plus. So got to look at the upsides. I mean, filling the positions of need with a lot of outfielders and hopefully finding yourself some golden nuggets in that pitching well with a lot of these high school guys and some bigger college guys who may be able to provide some more of that veteran presence, have been in Division I baseball for a lot longer. So I like where they're going with this, trying to use, their strengths right now.
Hey, our show is brought to you by D Community. The QR code is like right there. Right there. And that's how you can join us as we build our Web3 group at D Community. And we appreciate you guys so much for being part of our channel every day. This is our draft show. We'll continue to watch the trade deadline, see what's going on with the Cubs there. But D Community, stay connected with us as we put this thing together right here on the Cubs baseball channel. Thank you to Connor Nelson for his help. And go Cubs. Let's hope that Conrad becomes the steal of the